Welcome to this week's episode of Success and Women. Today we're going to be talking about how you measure success. I'm Linda.
I'm Andrea.
And Andrea's going to share her weekly tip before we get into this week's episode. Andrea, what's your tip?
Hi, ladies. So I'm sure some women wear tall boots all year round, but this is the season, the winter's coming. And I find that when I wear my tall boots, I take them off. They just flop over, and then they get wrinkles, some of them, if they're suede or leather. I found this tip that if you take a pool noodle and you measure it to the length of the calf length of your boot, you just cut it to that size, and when you come home, you just plop it in, and they stand up straight and they hold their shape until you put them back on.
You know what's interesting? That's a great tip, but do you know what's interesting? Sometimes when you buy your boots, they have these things, these foam things inside. And of course, what do we do when we get home?
Yeah.
We throw everything away,
Yeah.
not realizing that, yes, they serve a purpose.
They serve a purpose.
They
yeah.
really do.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to talk, the whole show is about women helping women and success. And we want to know how you measure success, because success comes in different forms. And if you are looking to say, for example, you have aspirations, Andrea, of being, I'm going to say, the Prime Minister of Canada, and you say, unless I become Prime Minister of Canada, I'm never going to be successful.
Yeah.
That's not really right, because you could be extremely successful in being a wife,
Exactly.
in being a mother,
Mm-hmm.
in whatever career that you're doing, in doing this show.
Yeah, like success doesn't mean fame and fortune.
Exactly.
It just means feeling complete and content in your day-to-day living. And like I said, for some people, getting out of bed and making the bed is a big deal. They feel successful, and that's great. And it should make you feel good. And then maybe just doing that, you can do another step. Like every day you add something else onto it, if that's your goal. But if your goal is bigger, then you measure it on a bigger scale.
Because some people equate success with how much money you have in the bank account. And if you notice, a lot of people with a lot of money are not happy. Well, if you're not happy, then you're not successful in life in general, because your career is successful.
Exactly.
And so when you're going through life, you have to start having gratitude of the successes that are there.
Exactly.
And acknowledging and recognizing that, like Andrea said, when you get up and it's just one of those things, if you go and you make your bed, you've already accomplished something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then why not recognize that is something successful? Because not everybody gets up and makes their bed.
Exactly.
And so that's the first step in your day. And so whatever it is that you're going out and you're doing in your job, okay, acknowledge to yourself, because you won't always get that acknowledgement from anybody necessarily, but you have to recognize all these little successes throughout the day, even if that means accomplishing. And we talked about this earlier, when you can get up and, get yourself ready, get yourself out of the house, going and doing your errands, or getting yourself to the office. Okay, we're back, and you're still alive and with us.
I'm okay.
And apologize for the little interruption. But as we're talking about success, and I during this little break, I was thinking about, I remember one of my jobs that I got back in 1990, and it was in sales. And I said, when I reach a certain income, then I will have arrived. And I felt like that would make me successful. When I got a particular car that I had in one of my goals, then I was successful because I got a particular car. But I also remember way before 1990 even, when I was working, actually, at that time I was working for the federal government. And I remember at the time even thinking, when I made not just a certain income, but when I bought my first house, when, certain things, and all of these little goals and accomplishments, and they weren't little because for me, they were humongous,
Right.
that it would change my life. And that's why I would
Did
say,
it?
well, yes and no. Anytime I found that I got something that I really wanted in life and that I said to myself, that would make a difference, that would make me feel, and people would recognize that I'm successful because these things happen, it never did. It never changed anything on the outside.
Right.
It did make me want to get other goals accomplished, and that's why I never stop. I always have something on the go, because for me, success is accomplishing something.
Right.
Now, I don't have the family. You've got a family, you've got children, you've got grandchildren, well, at least a grandchild. You've got a lot of different things in your life, and that's a different success.
Yes.
And to know that you have a happy marriage for all of these years is a huge accomplishment, and recognition should be with people around you that have gone through divorce and everything else, thinking, wow, what is she doing that I'm not doing? But acknowledging that is a big success in life.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for me, like, I never thought about success as far as being in a career or making lots of money. Maybe I wasn't raised to think like that, because, in our day it was get out of high school, find a husband, get married, right? Get out of the house. But I think mine was more because even when I was married, I was very successful in finding who I wanted.
When you said was married, no, you are married.
Oh yeah, I am married.
And it's only to one husband.
I meant when I got married.
Yes.
So yeah, and it's only been one. And I was successful in getting the Italian husband, like I've always said. But one of my goals was to never have to work, to quit and stay home and raise my family. That was my big goal.
And that's a big success. You
And
did it.
And I did it. And for some women, they would say, oh, how could you measure that as success? But ultimately, it's what makes you happy and content where you're at. And that's what made me happy. I was never happy working and getting home to a family and having to do all the chores that a woman has to do in order to juggle both work and home. And that was my big thing. And when I quit work and stayed home as a full-time domestic goddess, that was my happiest. And I felt very successful then. And then, getting the kids to, I wanted them to dance, and those things happened. Very successful there. We traveled with the girls. We had so much fun. We bonded. Dance was something I enjoyed. I never wanted to be a hockey mom, so I never had a son. So goal accomplished.
Well, lucky.
Not for my husband, but for me.
But lucky, Andrea, you raised your girls in a time when you did, because there's a lot of women now playing hockey, and thank God, because they're very good, and it's exciting to watch, because my own business partner, actually in another business, has a daughter that plays hockey, and she's very, very good at it.
I wouldn't have liked that just because we were raised in the rink because of my two brothers.
Exactly.
And then eventually we played ringette, so we were always in the arena, in the rink, in the court. But when you're young, it doesn't bother you so much. But now, the other day I went to watch my grandson for his skating lesson. I was freezing. I had to go out and watch from inside, and I felt like, oh, that's not good. You're not a good Gigi to do that. But I went in and out. As my toes warmed up, I went back in. Next time I'll dress warmer.
But you notice all of these things, and all of these things that you've done and accomplished, and you've been happy all the way along the way. That's got nothing to do with money.
No.
And so, if you believe that success can only be measured by how much money you have, then I think that something is going on up there from when you were probably younger that you have to figure out, because that's not
really
going to
make me happy.
Yeah, because in the end, I think I was starting to say before, if you look around at a lot of people that are successful in their careers and that have a lot of money, they're not necessarily happier than you are. And if that's the case, how come they're not happy if they can have and do anything they want?
Well,
So then you
Linda, I've
can't
got
measure.
to tell you, I was reading this story the other day on Facebook that I shared with a lot of people. And it was about a successful business person who goes to Italy, to this remote, gorgeous spot. And he's seen these fishermen bringing in this special kind of fish that you could only get in this spot. And he went up to the man and said, well, you should sell that fish. And he goes, well, why would I want to do that? And he goes, well, because then you could make more money. And he said, well, why would I want to do that? And he said, well, then you could, get a big factory, and you could have people working for you, and you could have all this money so that you could spend time with your friends and your family and relax. And he goes, but I already do that.
So I
So the moral of
actually
the
heard
story,
that
yeah.
before
Yeah.
with a Mexican villager
Right.
that spent. He fished in the morning so he could feed his family.
Right.
In the afternoon, he was with his family,
Yeah.
And his friends, because at night they would always get together. They'd have sing-songs after dinner.
Right.
And all those social connections that people need.
And people think they have to have a lot of money
Right.
and struggle to get there to get that.
And you see that person that you were referring to that goes to Italy, to this small village, was looking to get away from the stresses of his life.
Right.
And realizing that you don't need the money.
You're offering to give stress to
Yeah.
another person or teach
Exactly.
them how to live that type of life. It's not.
People are doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And being very successful at their life because they make enough to support the family and they're happy doing what
Yeah.
they do.
I was in Nova Scotia one time with my family, and my cousin's wife, she's originally from Newfoundland, and her brother happened to be there. And so he's a single guy, and he's a longshoreman along with my cousin. And so my cousin said to him, do you know, on the weekend, they're looking for guys to make, to fill in on the weekend. You can make a lot of extra money overtime. And his friend turned around and said, how much beer can one man drink? And I thought, wow.
That's pretty funny, but that is...
Why would I give up my weekend
Yeah.
to make more money when I have already enough?
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because how much do you really need?
Yeah.
If you think about it. And you know what? I know that sometimes we struggle because, things are going on in life. There's extra expenses and cost and stuff. But if you get right down to it, how much money do any of us need? And it's one of those things where
To stress over.
to stress over. So really, how successful are you?
Right.
And I think I remember you were mentioning, Andrea, and maybe this is going to be on another show that we talked about, but at one point when you gave up working, and she had a friend actually that was still working, didn't have any children, and you were at home being a successful mom, and this other person, because she was a career person, couldn't really understand, but also couldn't understand that you weren't available all the time.
All the time. And where it was before, when I was working, after work, we'd go for maybe a bite to eat or a drink or whatever. But then after, when I had, not so much, like when I had 2 or 3 children, then it was very difficult. And then, that is a topic for another episode, but
it was still how she measured
she
success.
measured success that way. And then she saw the light eventually, but
I think
yeah.
it's because she eventually had children, right? Much, much later in life, but she did,
and stayed home.
and stayed home, and there you go. And so money didn't matter anymore in the same way. Yes, you need it, but it wasn't the same. She didn't have to feel successful going out to work anymore.
Right. And that's the thing. When I did quit work, we decided to go down to 1 car because we really didn't need 2 cars anymore. I stopped buying at that time nylons and fancy clothes because I was in an office. And so I got rid of all that expense, and then I was able to cook more at home. So successful in other ways. So really, when you're working, how much are you making to give up raising your own family? I mean, if you're a doctor, lawyer, or whatnot, that's different story. Some women really love and want to do that. I never
But then
did.
some of their partners actually stay home and parent as well.
That's true.
It's just not the woman doing it, but it's the
Well, I
it's the
remember
spouse.
my daughter and her boyfriend, when they talked about marriage years ago. My daughter always said, "I'm working. You're going to stay home and raise the kids," and he said, "No problem." So yeah, see, success is different for everybody.
Yeah.
It's what you think will make you the happiest.
Right, because
There's
if
no
you,
point being miserable.
well, and that's the thing. If you're going to work and you're stressed out, and you're stressed out when you come home, you don't even have time for family and friends.
Yeah.
How can you say that you're successful no matter how far you are up the ladder in your career?
And you're always telling everybody, "I'm so tired. I'm
Yeah.
so stressed. Oh, I got to take the kids there. I got to take the kids there. Oh. It's that emotion that you don't want to have to live until your children are out of the home at 18, type of thing.
Or I've heard of a situation where actually this lady, her career was everything, and she literally put her whole life, gave 1,000% to her job, to the point where not only wasn't she happy because she could never find the time to take off, but she ended up getting sick anyway and had to give up the career.
Oh, wow.
And so there's not even an in-between as far as
Yeah.
balance, because this was
There's
forced
the
on
word
her.
too, balance. You need to have balance
Right.
to be happy and successful. And you got to find it. Now, if you have children and you have a career, a lot of women have nannies, have live-in help. And it works very nicely for the family. I had years ago when I lived on a different area, and we all had small children, and my neighbors, they were both optometrists, and they had a live-in nanny from, I think, Germany. Oh, she was the most wonderful girl, and she lived in, and the kids, they had 3 children. The kids loved her, so it worked really well with them. Now, the only problem that I saw was a few nights out of the week, she would have to feed them and put them to bed, and my neighbors never even got to see their children all day long, and I thought, but they were fine with that. See, that's another thing. If you're fine with that, then that's good.
Yeah, but were the kids fine with that? You don't know.
Yeah, I really don't know that. I mean, they were small, and they loved the nanny, and she did everything with them, and but the couple seemed to be very happy because they did like to make money and have money, and
But they found some balance.
They found some balance
Yeah.
with her, and then years later, when the kids were a little bit older, they bought a beautiful cottage in Muskoka. So then they made a point of going on weekends. So that helped. So you find a balance.
Right. And I think nowadays as well, because of what's happened over the last few years, being able to work from home, working remotely,
yes.
has helped a lot of people,
Yeah.
I'll say, find a different kind of balance so that it works for them. But again, don't measure success by the money, because if the money comes with stress and, I'll say, putting you off balance, so
Misery.
that in misery, you get health problems,
Yes.
whatever, because we only get one kick of the can.
Exactly.
And we got to make the best of it. So you want to keep your family and your health as top priorities, because you can't get that time back.
Exactly.
And so if the career is the only thing that you're focused on, but you're not happy, then you're not successful.
Right.
And that balance is going to be key. And ladies, if you've been off balance, find a way to get back on,
Yes.
I'll say, track, so that you can find that
Right.
balance of what you need in life.
Yes. Like even, ask for like some help. I remember when the kids were younger and they needed extra help at night with homework and such. And, you're busy, you don't have time to sit with them. There's a lot of teenagers in the neighborhood. maybe call up one of your friends. I had a friend of mine, her daughter was just starting university. And I said, would she come over once or twice a week and sit with my girls and help them do their home? She was so happy to do it. My kids loved it. It wasn't like a teacher.
Right.
It was a student. And it helped me, it helped them.
I was going to say, probably helped you even more because I've heard of parents not being able to figure out what that homework even was. So you want to give your
now it
kids
would be harder.
It's even harder, and you want to give your kids that opportunity to do well. And but having I'm going to say a young person that's really just gone through that, they would be so much more effective, right? But it does also free up a bit of time.
It frees up some time, and the same with
Finding
carpooling.
balance.
If your kids do dance or hockey, carpool with other parents. Say, okay, this week I'll do the driving, next week you do the driving. There's a balance, and find it. Don't do it all yourself. Don't
feel like
super
you have to.
mom and super worker, because you can't give 100% both ways.
No.
You can't give 100% at home and 100% at work and expect to feel good. It's not going to happen. You're going to be rushed, and you know who suffers? Not your job, because you don't want to lose your job. There's consequences to not giving 100% at work. Your home suffers.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, but that's a consequence as well.
It is,
because
but
you
the
could
consequence that, I'm just saying, your house doesn't get cleaned, or supper's pizza every night. You don't put your kids in extra activities.
But even the time that you spend with your spouse, Andrea.
Oh, I didn't
because
even
you want to
mention
have
spouse.
a successful relationship. If you're in one, you want to keep that relationship because there's a bigger cost, not just financially, but emotionally. Which means you're more of a wreck, I'll say, at work and your home life now.
And I think maybe that's a major cause of a lot of split ups, is just not being able, both husband and wife, to find a balance. Between work and home. And then you just basically take it out on each other. And it's probably, if you could find the balance, you'd be okay. Anyway,
so that's us for this week on Success in Women. I think it was a great thing to think about, ladies, on how you measure success for yourself. It's going to be different for everybody, but
make
finding
sure it
that
makes
balance.
you happy.
Yes.
Number one.
Be
happy.
Be happy. That's a good way to end it. So I'm Linda.
Andrea.
And don't forget to
like,
subscribe,
and please share with your friends.
Until next week, we'll see you then.
Bye, ladies.